Hi.
How are you? Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'm Ralph Harrison, the Vice Chairman. Larry is out sick today, so I'm going to be filling in, helping him out today. I want to call to order the Winnebago County Human Services Board meeting. Okay, next would be the public comments, right? Do we have any public comments? Oh, yes, we do.
Karen Powers, 2563 Village Lane. I'm also the supervisor in District 25. I just want, on behalf of the entire County Board of Supervisors, I want to offer you all our most deep condolences on the death of your colleague Pam. And I don't know who her department it is.
Well, Pam was doing some work with us here in long-term support, so it would be better.
And I'm really sorry for the loss of your colleague. I know it's going to be hard, and I just wish you all, on behalf of the entire board, our deepest sympathies. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Public? Last time, anyone else? About on Zoom? Anybody on Zoom?
Nobody's on Zoom.
Okay. All right. Next is we have a great program for you today. I don't know if everybody knows Beth from the United Way. Everybody do, right? What? Well, that's what my thing. Program for.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, do you remember who set up your coming to speak with us today? Was it Renee?
It was Renee.
Okay, and Renee is on vacation this week, so she's down in she's heading down to Mexico. Hopefully to avoid any further tropical storms along the way. But we certainly welcome you.
Thank you.
And have to hear about whatever your programming is. And it's a friendly group. We usually have a presentation and we have some questions, and we'll hear whatever you have to tell us.
Okay.
Yes.
Honestly, after last night, the questions that you have will be nothing.
Yeah, wait to see.
Yeah, well, maybe, I don't know. Do you have the PowerPoint? So if you're fine with me sitting, then I'm more comfortable this way. If for those of you that don't know me, I'm the CEO of Oshkosh Area United Way. My prior life, I was the executive director for Christine Ann for about 7 years. That's why Annette and I have trauma bonding. And then prior to that, I was banking finance. So my husband jokes that nonprofit was my midlife crisis. You know, what am I going to do? And I said, that's better than a Brad Pitt lookalike. You should be happy. So here I am today.
Do you know one?
No, no. Karen. So I figured I would just share some information about United Way. I wasn't exactly sure the landscape of who would be here, but just to give an overview, and even I was not exactly sure when I started applying for this position what United Way did, and that was kind of an interesting piece when I kept pressing the board. Well, what does United Way do? What does United Way do? And everybody had different kind of ideas, which that's okay from a board, but also it opened the door for, okay, now we can do some strategy and let's all get on the same page, which is the part that I like. So, is it that one? Okay. So what we do kind of day to day in the next couple slides, just kind of talk about day to day. We really advocate for the work of the community's nonprofits. So we work with nonprofits to understand kind of the overarching reach and scope of what they do. We work to enhance kind of that collaboration piece for nonprofits, and especially ensuring that they're working with ADRC if they're working with anybody with different abilities or the aging population. So we kind of want to be seen really as kind of the go-to person or go-to group for, hey, what more could we do? And also really act as kind of the central location for donations. Like I said at Christine Ann, we didn't have a lot of room for things. So if we needed something, we didn't have a lot of storage. United Way now has moved into the old, if you're from Oshkosh, it's the old Oshkosh Savings and Loan. like downtown 1950s, fantastic building, because I love that look. And we have this giant vault, so we're creating a community vault where we're gonna have a diaper vault and diaper bank of and supplies for school supplies, hygiene, all the things that the programs and the workers that directly are connected with individuals out in the community can come and use a resource just to make sure things are going and getting out to individuals. We notice that a lot of times people who are not necessarily directly connected to a service, maybe they don't need a Christine Ann or a Solutions or something like that. They kind of are in that gap of, well, where do I get things from? Because I have to be connected with something to get diapers and needs. So we work with the school social workers. You see a family that's in need, help them out, come get stuff. So that's the role that we want to play in that. Convener is our next thing. We like to think that we're the one that brings groups together to help identify gaps when we see, holy cats, post-COVID, there are so many reading deficiencies in kids because of kids' learning styles were not conducive to online. And so there were a lot of kids who are missing. So what can we do and who's doing the things? Okay, nobody's really working in this segment. So I'll show you that a little later, what we did with that. That's really cool. Does everybody, have you heard of ALICE? The acronym ALICE? Okay, asset limited income constraint but employed. So that's the group of individuals who can't meet the basic needs, but they are above poverty level. So they don't maybe qualify for services, but they still can't make ends meet. So for the state of Wisconsin, the average ALICE threat, 66% of the state is above that ALICE threshold. For Winnebago County, 67% are above ALICE. And so we then drill down into the Oshkosh area, which is kind of southern Highway G and below southern Winnebago County. And for the Oshkosh area, 41% of our community is below that ALICE threshold. So there's that disparity between, you know, what the whole county is seeing and even specific to our area. So we know through a lot of this data research that the biggest issues are housing, childcare, you know, financial stability. So that's the type of thing that we work to learn that data and understand to then make sure that we're focusing our efforts to help those individuals that are in the ALICE, because the people that are really, really, really deep in and need the most help, that's legislative. That is a lot more work. So we're trying to move the people that are quickly, easily moved out of that threshold so that we can really bulk help a lot of people with the resources that we have. And then we invest donations. So we support local programs through grants. We have our annual allocation that we do, large grants to a number of different nonprofits in the area. We just finished up for this year, so we haven't told anyone. So I'm not going to share who we're going to be funding yet because I don't want to spill the beans until they know about it. But very similar names to how we funded in the past.
Do they still make presentations?
Pardon?
Do they still make presentations before a
They
granting
do,
session?
yeah. So we do have community members that come in. So they're listening, they're asking the questions, and it's a really interesting, it's interesting for us staff to hear the different perspectives and questions and stuff that comes from that community investment team.
And are you still doing outcomes-based funding, or have you moved on to something different?
Well, we still do RBA, results-based accountability. So yeah, they set their outcomes right away, what they anticipate, and then that's kind of what part of their presentation is. How well did you do? How many did you serve? What does that look like? We are working with the programs to, okay, don't give us just the easy answers. Let's look at, if you hit 100% every time, okay, well then that's not really, we don't want the 100% every time. We want to know where are you struggling? Where are you seeing issues and challenges? And so, yeah, the presentations are really fascinating to watch and hear.
I'll tell you a funny story after.
Okay. We started a new initiative where we're doing small one-time grants. So if a program needs $3,000 for something. Instead of going through that whole, you have to interview, you have to do all these results, but we can just do a small grant. We can do our due diligence internally and get that money out, because we want to make sure that that money gets out and gets to the programs that need it, rather than them having to wait, 6 months before they get their first payment. For 6 months for their first payment?
Yeah.
Well, it would be great. Well, yeah, that's a whole, you're gonna be invited to the next strategy meeting, got it, on how to do that. Because we want to get a funding decision in the fall to the organization by the first of the year. So if they're doing fall budgeting, they know by the first of the year, they're gonna start getting their funding for that year so they can budget ahead of time. We haven't run the campaign yet, so I don't know how much we're gonna raise. So I'm kind of crap shooting on how much I hope that we're gonna be able to raise. We make sure to be conservative, to make sure that we're not gonna have to say, sorry, just kidding, we're gonna have to take 10% back, but yeah. So you're gonna be on a committee, I can see it, Jeff. So United Way Worldwide focuses on 3 areas. It's health, financial stability, and education. So what we do is we work with the community, and actually we are working with social work graduate program, Dr. Matthew Ringenberg through the university, and they do program evaluation. So 2 of his groups of students are going to be doing some evaluation in the community. What are the biggest challenges? So they're going to work with the nonprofits to, okay, you work with aging and disability, but okay, that's the issue, the front issue, but what's the deeper, what's the root, what's happening, what's to try to get to some of the root causes to make sure what we had deemed probably 5 years ago as youth-focused education, mental health, and financial stability, to make sure that our local pillars still match the needs for this community. Then the second group is going to go out to the community and stakeholders and just say, with some parameters, what do you think the greatest challenges are in our community? So we're going to be reevaluating those just to make sure that we're serving the needs of the community. So this was last year, how we divided out those allocation funds, almost 40% to financial stability, 24% to youth-focused education, and 37% to mental health. We anticipate funding a little over more than 40 different programs in the community through the allocation process. But like I said, I'm not giving away the secrets, and you'll see soon. I'm sure you're all waiting to see all that. So our first pillar was advancing youth-focused education. So we support food programs through the community pantry to offer those snacks in school, and with the funding, we were able to, the pantry with our funding was able to offer over 200,000 snacks to 4,400 kids throughout the Oshkosh School District. 1,200 plus hours of reading through tutoring programs. The Boys and Girls Club they've worked with 66 teen students, so they have a program that works with kids that are at risk of graduating, and their end goal is graduate, because we know that there's a strong correlation with kids that don't even have a high school education, and they are never getting, now education is leading into that financial stability. So if they don't graduate, they are not going to get a decent paying job. So their goal on that is really working with graduation. And then internally, we offer the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which is a program that we internally run, and it's for all of the Oshkosh area, so Amro, Winnebago, and surrounding areas as well, where it's a free book each month to kids from birth to 5, and it's curated specific to that age group, and it gets dropped in the mail. And if you've had kids, I mean, for them to get mail with their name on it is just the end all. And we have parents that are like, oh, we love it, but oh my gosh, when they come in the mail, we have to sit down and read it immediately. And sometimes we just can't. And we love hearing those stories. It's a great problem to have. So this slide, advancing youth-focused education, is where a few years ago, post-COVID realized the reading disparity on those kids that were coming into third grade. And when they don't have that reading proficiency by third grade, that leads into a higher probability of the lower graduation rate, which then now you fit into, unfortunately, all of those three categories. So we reached out to the University of Oshkosh because there were some tutor programs, but we really couldn't find any programs that were just going to tutor your kids other than private tutoring. So the university worked with United Way to start a growing readers program, and then the university has work study students that are going to school to be educators or in some type of capacity like that are working with these youth in the grade schools. So they work with Linda Piron with the school district, who identifies these kids that are struggling, and they match them with a peer tutor. So, you know, it's a college kid. They want to work with them, not with me, because I look like their mom or their grandma at this point. So, you know, the connection, like, look at those girls. They look like they could be younger than my kids. But just the connection that it makes with the college students and the readers. And even one of them, I noticed my patient level definitely has gotten better, along with my ability to assist others. So now the tutors are getting a lot out of this as well. Working with kids, my mom was a teacher, God bless them, I couldn't do that. That is a lot. So it's kind of cool to see the advantages of both sides of that program. So the next pillar for advancing mental health. Solutions Center, obviously Solutions is one of the programs that we continue to see unfortunate increase in the need, and we're strong supporters of Solutions. There's a few meals programs that are delivered to inbound individuals, and we know that's an isolation. It has a direct relation to physical and mental health. And then Samaritan Health does in-school health assessments to identify kids that are at risk, that have experienced traumatic experiences. And they identify a number of kids when they talk to the parents, had no idea. I thought they were doing fine, but there was something in that risk assessment that identified and opened up conversations. So then what Samaritan does is tries to connect those parents with resources that can help those kids. So, you know, if you've had kids, Mom, I'm fine, I don't need you, but to talk to a peer, talk to somebody else, that can just, whatever it takes, just to open that door to get kids connected to the services that they need. Then, in addition to that, we, United Way, offer a program called 211. So that's a national dial code. It's in 94% of the United States. So just about all states have access to a 211 program. And what that is, so some of you might be aware, AIRS certified, did I say that right? AIRS certified resource. Dang, I need to look at my notes.
Alliance for
Thank you.
Information and Resource.
Thank you. They are AIRS certified. I guess it's like a 12-month certification that they have to go to be able to be certified. So this we just use kind of as an example. Emergency is 911. Suicide and mental health crisis hotline is 988. But for that we need help, but it is not urgent or crisis or I'm going to hurt myself or others. That's where you call 211. It's for resources, anything from housing to gas cards to transportation. And the cool thing about it is even one of our coworkers has elderly family in Arizona and didn't know, I don't know what's in their area. So she called 211, put in their zip code, and was able to be connected to somebody down there and got a whole bunch of resources that they could then help their grandma down in 211 in that Arizona area with, hey, do you know all these things are available? So it's for anybody to use. You can use on behalf of somebody else. You can use it for yourself, and it's a free service and 24/7, and it's multilingual as well. So see, I could have just gone to the next page. This is the first time I'm doing this. We just changed it for this year, so you're my guinea pigs for trying out the stuff. So in 2022, there were 2,300 calls, texts. You can text, you can chat, and they served 3,300 requests just in this Oshkosh. That's specific just to our Oshkosh area that our United Way serves. 211 also serves as the Wisconsin Addiction hotline. So if somebody calls and they identify that they're struggling with any type of addiction, they can do a quick assessment over the phone to make sure that they're directing them to appropriate services. Because depending on if you have insurance, you can go to some places. If you don't have insurance, you're not going to be able to get into maybe a Rogers or some of those other types of places. So at least they're doing a warm handoff directly to a place that they feel somebody would be able to be accepted into. And then finally, increasing financial stability. We all kind of came in thinking, well, mental health is the biggest. Mental health is the thing that kind of everything cascades from. But after hearing and sitting through those community investment, it really kind of feels like financial stability is what cascades everything else. So we actually, I think the slide said 39%, I think for this year, we actually increased it by 43%. So we gave a higher proportion of the funding to different financial stability groups because one of the programs, Rides to Work, so 3,500 rides to work individuals that work these great paying jobs out on the edge of town where the bus doesn't go. Well, I want to work there, but I can't get there. So there are a couple different programs that offer rides to work, budgeting skills. If that is not a learned behavior, that is something that just does not come naturally to people. So between Goodwill and Advocap, there are programs to work with individuals that are in debt and work on some of those budgeting skills. And then Advocap also does a program that works with individuals that are trying to increase their skills to increase their income ratio. So Jan, the video I was trying to load up from Advocap, talks about she worked with a woman who had her high school diploma and she was working fast food and in her 30s and just was never going to get past that. Worked with her to get her CNA and her LPN, and now she's on her way to her BSN, and she's making 4 times what she ever would have made, and she was able to do that in 2 years because she had this coach that was there and just, you know, it's okay, this is hard, we all struggle with it, and just kind of walked side by side with her through that program. It was a cool video. Sorry, you can't see it. Technology, God bless technology. One of the other programs then that we internally offer is a single care. If you're not familiar with it, it's available to anybody. So it's a prescription card that United Way worldwide has offerings for each United Way to use on their own. There's a new, if you use an EpiPen, I found this out unfortunately the hard way, a few Anthem and I know Cigna, now I'm not sure about some of the other ones, no longer, for some high deductible plans, no longer cover EpiPens in their plan. So when you go to Aurora to get your EpiPen refill, it's $360. Well, if I don't eat shrimp, I don't need an EpiPen. So do I really need to spend that much money? I mean, that now people are making those decisions based on that. With a single care card, I was able to look it up and it still was gross, but it was $150 for the 2 pens, significant savings. So in 22, 530 users right in the Oshkosh area saved $46,000 by using that single care card. Sorry, I am going way over the 15 minutes. We also run the volunteer center for the Oshkosh area. So as you see the new Dragon Boat Festival way on the left-hand side, Mike, Beth, I'm trying to convince him to be on the boat again if you have space.
One more.
Oh, Mike, one spot. They have one spot to fill.
Mark, not Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark.
Yeah.
I have my, sorry,
I did it
I have
for
my
4
readers
years.
on rather than my others. So,
Why didn't he do it? But in the middle of the engine room, right? They always put me in the middle, because it was always the engine room, the big people get there.
You could go under the guise of Mike, see?
We did win one year, didn't we? I'll think about it. I'll be there, but I'm not sure. I'll wear my old shirts.
Well, you'd get a new United Way shirt if anyone's
Right.
interested in being on the dragon boat, so.
It'd be fun again.
Yeah, so we run Volunteer Oshkosh, it's volunteeroshkosh.org. So we work with nonprofits to get their volunteer opportunities loaded, so it's really a one-stop shop. We started a couple new options on the left-hand side where group projects, so here are the dates of all the different group projects, and you and your friends or coworkers want to do a thing, you can look to see what's available on the dates. And then we do featured also, such as the Dragon Boat. They need a ton of volunteers to help make that a success. So when we talk about giving to United Way, we hear a lot of people say, well, why don't I just give to Christine Ann directly? Why do I give to United Way to make sure that it goes there? I would say please do both, because United Way gives to the community, it gives to the services that are serving the community as a whole. You guys probably all know that most of these individuals are not just solely going to one program. They're accessing a number of different programs. So we make sure that we're funding programs that are working together to do all the things within those three focus areas. So when we give, we're giving to the group and the collective. So I would love for people to do both. And then we do a fun thing. Bergstrom has been very generous. So each year they donate a car to us to help encourage to give people to participate and give. Questions?
So let me, before you get
Yes.
to the questions, so let me add the part that the county does, because I'm not sure you're aware of the history of United Way with Winnebago County.
I think that my presentation was 3 weeks after I started last year.
Oh, okay, so
thank
you
goodness
were,
I knew some of the people in there. and I
okay,
was
so
like,
you were there
"Really
last year,
nice."
all right. I was there too, I must have missed you. Or...
Well, I was blinded by fear probably, so I didn't
Okay.
even see your face. Could have been.
So the history of United Way with Winnebago County is that there is only one organization that Winnebago County allows to do fundraising on county premises, and that is United Way. And that precedes me. I don't know how long that has gone on, but it was a decision, I believe, of the county board way back when that United Way was going to be allowed to solicit yearly donations for the United Way for Winnebago County, and also for Fox Valley United Way for people that live in Menasha and Neenah, because they're in a different United Way, but there is you can also designate on your form as a county employee. So the nice parts about United Way is that if you want to donate to United Way as a county employee, that actually it can be processed through payroll. And so once a year, these nice folks come and present what's new this year for United Way. That should be coming up in the next
Now
month
you
or
can
two.
skip that one because you know all the stuff.
It's right there.
So they come and they present, and so we do a push with the employees to consider donating, and you can do it online, you can do it with paper form, unless that's changed this year.
No, same.
And then we in Human Services have basically been sort of a collection point. Last couple of years, we've been a collection point for the whole, all of the county employees, and Pam is our person who collates all that stuff and sends it into United Way and corresponds. And I personally, I've been a big a supporter of United Way since I've been here 16 years, and I was on the delegation committees that you talked about for where the fundings go. That was back in 2010. I was a board member way back at that point too. And what I'd like to say to people is that the kinds of organizations that United Way supports are organizations that actually complement human services. They do not compete with human services. So we don't cover the same territory. They might, as an organization like AvoCap gets some funding from United Way, and we have some AvoCap dollars that are going, but we're not duplicating services. We're complementing each other. So I like that. And I like that you don't have to worry about if you don't know who to donate to. If you donate to United Way, it's a group of organizations, the money gets split up nicely. And so if you don't have a particular one organization to donate to, United Way is a good one. There's lots of other things, misconceptions that people have had over the years about United Way, that, you know, sometimes that they were political, or that they funded birth control, or that they funded Planned Parenthood. None of those things are true. And so every year you have to kind of dispel the rumors to the public that somehow United Way has taken on some sort of a political bent, which is not accurate at all. And so I've appreciated, you know, the collaboration, you know, with United Way over the years, and things that in human services we don't do or can't do that United Way organizations have been able to do. So I look at them as a nonprofit. All of those organizations as nonprofit partners with us in the human services field. So I just wanted to add that, so in case the board and some of the board members may not have known that that's kind of a connection that we have with United Way. That's different than any other nonprofit. We don't do any other solicitation in the county for county employees. So anyway, so questions for Beth?
Anyone?
I'll relate my funny story.
Oh, there we go.
In 2000, I believe it was the ARC, what used to be the ARC, the director and the co-director had were presenting an outcomes-based request, and their plan had been to educate their clientele with the issues that were in the election, and get them all registered, and you know, give them the pros and the cons and who said what, and let them decide who they're going to vote for. Then they would gather together on election night, and at the end of the night, they would know who won and discuss the outcome. If you don't recall what 2000 was, that was Bush Gore. Nobody knew at the end of nobody knew for a month or more who won. So they completely blew their outcome, but it was completely, you know, beyond anybody's scope of imagination.
That was the hanging Chad. Sure.
Oh, funny.
I had one question, like, you talked about donating through that. If you wanted your donation, whatever you do, to go to a certain group, can you do that?
Yeah,
You
we
can
allow
ask that.
designations. We just want to make sure that nonprofits are supported. So if they don't have the opportunity, now you're retired, but especially for people who are working, they can have it come, even their direct donation come out direct deposit. I mean, we try to make it as easy as possible and try to be really donor advised. If you wanted to go to a certain focus area, financial stability only, we make sure to do that. If you wanted to go to a specific program, and or even a different United Way.
Yeah,
And
so
we've got
they can pass through,
agreements.
because a lot of people ask, well, I live in Neenah, I live in Menasha. You know, I donate to the other United Way. It's like, well, you can do one of two things. You can continue to donate to your other United Way, or you can do the donation through Oshkosh United Way, and they can pass through to Fox Valley, right?
And Fox Valley is most of the regional, we have reciprocal agreements, like we're not going to take out admin fees. And so if you're giving to Christina, we're not taking out admin fees for any of the local programs. So that's another misconception. Well, they only give 60% or whatever the number is. That's not true. We give it all to the program. So thanks, Bill. Jeez.
Yeah, well, I know it well because we've been doing it so long that we have to.
He knows all the answers.
Sure.
Well, on this one, we've had to know the answers because we've had to
Yeah.
like be the county. So when the county departments are questioning it, we became sort of the answers for our other county departments because we were doing the collation of all of the giving. So
Interesting.
yeah, and also in previous years, the county executive would give a prize as well for the I don't know, for a drawing of everybody who participated in giving. There would be a drawing, and a current county executive has done that. A press county executive did that, and then also this one with the car was another one. So if you added at least $1 more to what you'd given the year before, then you were entered into the raffle for this.
And that's specific to Oshkosh. So there's about 1,000 people that qualify every year. So the odds of winning are always pretty darn good. So
I've never won the vehicle.
Dang
I know,
it.
saying it.
Shoot.
Are you only giving 51.50? Is that the problem? You're only donating 51.50?
If you're 50 cents shy.
You're 50 cents shy, that's why you're not winning, Bill. It's $52.
I've been given.
Okay.
52, yeah.
I've never won either, and I've increased mine just to get over that limit.
Well, maybe because I keep putting your name in as Mike. That's
well, that's it.
why.
Mike is driving your car somewhere.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank you.
Because all the money for United Way, your group, it stays in Winnebago County?
Yes,
Okay, so that's.
unless it's designated to
To go,
go
okay.
to someone else.
That's important.
But all the general donations, they make sure stay here to serve everybody here.
And one technical question I'm asking is that I do a lot with the farmer's market and I do a celebration of lights. And a lot of times, you know, people want to donate to someplace, but they go through the foundations for tax purposes. No, I don't know, is it better, is that
Well,
anything
the
that for you?
foundation, the foundation has donor advised funds, but you have to have a larger amount of money to be able to put in, and then, so that's how we differ from that. So small gifts can make a bigger impact because of a collective. So if everybody in here gives $100, look at what that could do. So, yeah.
That makes sense.
One interesting thing about the car thing, one year, many years ago, well, they gave out keys at the business after hours.
Oh,
And I was one of the 5 people who got a key. And they had the car there, and they had the Northwestern there. I really didn't want to be in the paper, but the Northwestern was there the whole bit. And they had 5 people, 1 car to give out. So at 6 o'clock, the chamber guy was John.
Yeah, John Casper at the
After
time.
back then, he called people up, and I went up there. I was the second one. First guy, nothing. Second guy was me. Go up there, and I thought, this is my shot. I told my wife, I might win a car tonight. My kids could use it, and my son. So I got up there, and nothing. The guy after me won the car.
Was he Mike?
Right
Was his
there.
name Mike?
I think he needed it worse than me. They had 5 people, and they gave out 5 keys. I'll never
So
forget
close.
that. So it's just, I didn't want to get out of the car. I kept cranking it.
I think the last year they did that same thing, the first person who had the key, and they were like, it was like the, Price is Right. Bum,
I was there that year too, but I
bum,
didn't get a key. I didn't get picked, but they picked up 5,
Uh-huh.
and one person got, I'll never forget that. I thought, this is the year. My son Nick's gonna get a car.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions?
It's a great organization.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming and hanging with us
Thank
today.
you.
Thanks for your presentation. It was good. Thank you. All right.
You did a great job last night too, Ben. That
Oh,
was,
yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I was amazed at the work they've done in that.
I'm glad it maybe cleared up some wonderings of what the heck do we. I enjoy my spirit commission fellas, but I don't need to spend that much time with them.
Thanks a lot. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, that was good. We're almost done. We'll see you out there, all right?
Oh, good, yeah.
I gotta increase my. Number 3, I need approval for the minutes for August 7th.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
25.
Second.
What's her name?
I'll second that.
Second, there we go. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? No? Okay, that's good. And next would be the accept the minutes for August 14th. Do I hear approval or acceptance?
I move to accept the minutes of the ADRC committee meeting.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, all set. 5 now.
Okay, education and institutional placement statistics, our usual graph. We have, I believe, I think we have 4 pages now. Not mistaken, we added. Okay. So first page is our child welfare division, juvenile corrections, and that is our 1 placement at Lincoln Hills. And we have continued that. I think we're going to go into, are we going into 24? Or is this going to be done this year?
No, unfortunately, it's transferred to Heather's team.
It's gonna work.
Get transferred to Heather's team, so we're done in child welfare in beginning of November, October, beginning of
Okay,
November.
so it'll fall off of here.
Off of that,
But does it mean that the child's aging out? Is that what that means?
yes,
Okay,
child will be 18, but the child still needs additional services.
okay.
It'll transfer to Heather because it'll become a behavioral health placement at that point.
Okay.
And they're already working on making sure it's a smooth transition and, a teacher and
Okay, good.
So it'll be in a different category. Okay, so bottom of page 1 is Child Welfare Division, residential care centers. Those are longer term, 1-2 year, typically. Rawhide is one that everybody kind of recognizes as that category. It's not locked, but it's, you know, a kind of a large residential program. And we have, as in July, we had 3 placements. We're still anticipating that rising to 5 or 6 by the end of the year. Correct, Annette?
I'd say 5.
5 by the end of the year.
Also want to just point out, we missed a couple kiddos in April and May. So this is a little different than what you saw last time, and our average went up a little bit. So just so people are aware of that. The chart you got last month, I think we only had 2 or 3 kids in April and May, and we changed that up.
And I know this is a rise of our previous years, but this is what happens in some years where you have a lot of kids that need more than what we can provide locally. And it just so happened that we had a lot of kids all at once that rose to that level. Typically, it doesn't rise that quickly, but you know, it has. Depending on what happens in 24, things could go back down again, depending on how much success we have. So we're hoping that, you know, we'll get it back under control in sometime in 24.
Well, 15 was really high. Is there something comparable to what was going on in 2015 that's going on now? That it's just a fluke that, I mean, they had like.
Well, I think
over
the
5 kids.
fluke, if you look at our chart, is from 2017 through 2022, we had more than our share of great work and luck that we didn't have more bumping back up there. Because a county our size, typically, we wouldn't be surprised if we had an average 5-6 placements. I mean,
Our neighboring counties have 10 kids out of state, and then they have kids in residential care.
Like we
centers.
said, Missy, it'd be like that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, so that, I mean, just to give that an example, several of our neighboring counties have 15, 20 kids in residential care centers. So I think we have been very fortunate. We're gonna continue to bust our butts to keep the kids out of residential care centers, because it's not always the best environment, but when they need that, that's where they will go to get the treatment they need.
Is it a pandemic issue at all? Because it seems like right after that,
I mean, I don't know anything scientifically, but I would say anecdotally, yes, that the pandemic hurt a lot of kids and families.
okay, so now let's turn to page 2, which is behavioral health, BH division, behavioral health, specialty hospitals. Top graph is adult specialty hospitals like Winnebago Mental Health Institute. We had a couple of really significant ones, May and June, and then July, we were down to 2.6. Heather's probably going to tell us it's not staying there though. It's probably higher than that, right?
yes.
Yeah, I think we're gonna go back up again. And again, it just really depends on what's happening. We've had a couple of adults placed at Winnebago, kind of waiting for placements elsewhere, and that kind of adds to our statistics, unfortunately. We try to get people out as fast as we can, but sometimes family care entities don't really have placements, and then we end up paying the bill, and we've complained to the state about that for about a decade, and we've gotten nowhere. So we have to pay if people have to go to the inpatient hospital and they don't have an ability to pay. So that's where we are with adults. Behavioral health division, specialty hospital, bottom graph is children. And there we have been coming down from our high in May and slower, but again, that kind of bounces around too, depending on what our needs are. So stay tuned. We'll see how we turn out by the end of the year.
but we're both kind of similar. They were up there and both came down.
Yeah.
You expect both of them to go back up again then?
I don't know, it was, typically in a year, we don't expect like June, like we don't expect those months to be our high months either. It was an odd year throughout the state. So it's kind of hard, I guess, to predict what we're gonna see coming forward as well, so. But yeah, I would anticipate that it'll go back up again, I think.
And that's why it gets hard to budget, because when you start at budget time, if you're looking at things and they're really high, and then you're saying to yourself, well, maybe we should budget more because things are starting to go high again, and then they drop down. Then it's sort of like, well, where are we budgeting? You know, and so what we have done in our budget for next year, that you passed, that we got through the execs first round of budget talks, is basically, you know, we budgeted low for placements, and you know, we've increased our revenue in order to kind of come into line, and hopefully we've guessed right. We may or we may not. If we guess wrong, Janet and I know we're going back to the county board toward the end of the year to ask for some transfers and things. So we'll see how that goes.
I noticed, you know, 5 out of the 6 divisions, except for behavioral health for the kids. 2015 was a bad year for everybody. It was, look, they were all up. So there had to be something going on in 2015. that
Well, if
every
you
single
went
number was
back,
high.
if you went back to 2007,
Yeah,
which we kind of cut off because there was just not enough space in the paper. But if you actually go back, all of those lines that are up in 2015 are even higher. So the
wow.
further you go back.
So what we're actually
higher-
looking at is beginning in
higher-
2015, something was going on that helped us reduce all those numbers. Is that what you're saying?
Right. So what I would say is that we all started to get into the philosophy and the rhythm and the synergy of trying to wrap around services around people in the community. And that's when we saw the biggest gains and changes and things coming down. So it took us like from 2007 until 2015 to kind of get everybody, you know, my analogy, everybody rowing in the same direction in the boat, so that we were all kind of moving toward the goal. And it started to come together, I think, strongly in 2015, and then it came down from there. And then this year is unusual, and again, we're like speculating, why haven't we been able to do the same things we've done in the last, 5, 6, 7 years? And I think it's because pandemic actually was fine during the pandemic. We weren't getting the bouncing up during the pandemic, but now after the pandemic, it's starting to increase, because I think the needs were hidden during the pandemic and things got worse during the pandemic, but everybody was still pretty much at home. And we were still doing pretty much everything remotely. And then now that we're back sort of in, okay, kids are going back to school, parents are challenged again with going back to work. It's kind of created that stress again. And then also the financial stress, things are going on economically that, some people are getting rising incomes, but other people are not getting new dollars. And what's happened to all of our costs? They've all gone up by whatever percentage, right? Food, gas, rent, everything's gone up, and some people aren't benefiting from that, which is again going to create more stress in the home. So hopefully we can get this under control and see where we're headed. So next page, Child Welfare Division Secure Detention. I would say we're bouncing around our budgeted average. I think we're okay there. And then in foster care, we are below our budgeted amount, but as Annette will tell me, that is a number that will fluctuate as well. So we can't get too stuck on, we're probably only going to have 40, 42 kids in foster care, because that number is probably going to go up. At the same time, if you look at the next page, our last graph is we started to track our kids in kinship care placements. So while we have foster care lower, we also have a large number of kids now in kinship care. And so that takes a little bit off of, if we can put kids in kinship care with a light kin, we don't put them in foster care with folks that they don't know. So there's a little balancing act there between kinship and foster care. So all in all, obviously the statistics for July are a heck of a lot better than they were in May and June, but we'll have to see where the rest of the year plays out. Yes.
And thank you. And then, do you find that kinship care, do you ever have troubles with that where people who are related, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whatever, and it's really a disaster and you have to take them out, or for the most part, does that really work out?
I would say for the most part, it works out, but I mean, with the number of people that we serve, do some of them not work out? Yes.
Okay,
But we do everything we can to support them to keep it.
okay,
And we do also, even if they go into kinship care, we're not just saying, oh, you're a willing kin, you know, we're checking out like, well, how well do you know the kids? And, you know, what is your plan and where are they gonna be? And, you know, we still ask the questions that we would ask
okay.
of, you know,
A foster care coordinator is attached to kinship too.
And foster parents have some sort of stipend that they receive every month.
and kinship does too.
Okay,
But
that was
a
my
lesser
question.
amount, but they're also given the option of being foster, so they can actually go from being a kinship care provider to being a foster care provider.
For the
even
same
with their-
child?
With their own, yeah, with their own kid. So if they want to go through the foster care licensing, we help them go through that, they will then get a larger amount of stipend to take care of their like kin.
Okay,
So
okay,
that's an
good.
option too. So if they want to be a foster care provider, they can be a foster care provider. If they just want to be a kinship care provider, they could just be a kinship care provider.
And one of the things that happens too is that the state now funds what's called subsidized guardianship. So some of these kinship homes, they turn into that and then we do step up. They'll get funding through the state then to compensate them in a sense, a stipend that they'll get, and then we can step out because then the state and we are all saying that we believe this is a stable placement. And then the state steps in.
Because they would become an official guardian of their kin.
Okay,
And that's also another route that they can go. So they can just be a temporary provider, they can be a permanent guardian, they could be a foster care provider.
I had a question. On all these categories we have, is there anybody getting turned away or is there a waiting list? Or is this pretty much everyone? Nobody gets.
We have to have them either in their own home or in an alternative home setting.
Yeah, if you're asking child welfare, we don't.
No, any of these categories.
Oh, okay.
Any of them are, you don't have any people waiting or can't get service or that aren't taken
We
care
don't
of?
have the option.
You don't have that.
We
They're
don't
all
have the
there.
option to do that.
All of them are like by the statute for these types of placements, we don't have a choice to not serve them, so. we just
In all these
have to-
categories, we can't say we can't serve them. We have to serve them.
but we're dealing with human beings. If you don't have enough foster homes and yet you have to foster, what do you do with the kids?
That's why we always have to have more foster homes than we have kids in foster care.
Oh, so there are some empty foster
Oh,
homes?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
For sure.
Okay,
We're always recruiting, you know, new foster parents if they want to be. Now, will they get a child soon? That's a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, we're always recruiting.
okay, cool.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have a second shot for shingles today and my arm's
Oh.
killing me. So if I seem a little. That's why.
So you don't want shingles.
Yeah, I figured a shot is better than that, so.
Yes.
So, okay, so you have the financial report based on July financials. And you'll see on the first page that our projected year-end surplus is down to 2.4 million. I think this is kind of the point where we're transitioning away from the years of $4 to $5 million surplus. I think we're gonna end somewhere between like 2.5 and 3 million at year end. So it's a turning point, I think, in our financial situation. And some of it's, as Bill just talked about with the different types of placements, they're very expensive. And the more placements, obviously, the more money we're spending. So that's why we project, so we know.
And I would also say on top of just more placements, we have been budgeting less and less each year. You know, because when I say budgeting less, I mean that we have had to make changes in our budgets, either increases in revenue expectations or decreases in expenses in order to come in at a zero levy increase for our department. And that is some years, and also our vendors, we have to kind of like also try to keep our vendor costs down, which sometimes we can and sometimes we can't. But you know, in any given year, we might need to try to trim things by 1.8 or so, 1.5 to 2 million to try to come into line with that request by the county exec. So, I mean, theoretically, we should be hitting zero, like, meaning we should be hitting not a surplus nor a deficit sooner than later. And so when Jan's talking about we're coming down in our surplus, that's what should happen. Theoretically, that's what is going to happen, the way we've been budgeting over the last number of years, plus our extra placements. So I wasn't surprised. I mean, my reaction to Janet was like, okay, well, at least we're seeing what should be taking place. If we're budgeting correctly, we should be having a reduction in our surplus over time.
Yes.
Question, Bill, so all those years when we had a surplus because of family care, that 5-year thing, all that stuff is gone now.
Yep.
And that's why, that was nice to have that back then, that cushion.
Yeah. So when family care came in,
Yeah.
the county had about 5 million of levy that was going into that population of people that then the state was serving. So they said, you can, you still have to pay us 1.5 million. So we still do 1.5 million to family care, correct? Yeah. And so, but the other part, the extra 5 million, we leave with the county exec at that time allowed us to keep in our budget. But we knew that over the course of years, that was going to drop down because of what we're doing with our zero-based budget.
That was so nice back then.
It's all gone.
It's kind of, it just seems hard to me that, we're gonna have a surplus. We've had it for a long time. And we budget, they tell us to budget, but knowing that we're still gonna have a surplus. To me, it just seems if the surplus, what our needs can we do? Because whatever surplus ends up going back to the county, right?
Right.
So I guess I'm a little selfish because human services, where do we need something there? And to make you cut your budget, make you get down as far as you can, but you still got a surplus. The first thing that comes to mind is like, is there a need where we have it, we don't do, you know what I mean? Does that make sense at all? I mean, if you know you're gonna have consistently this money left, you know you're gonna have to give it to the county. Where the human services could we use it that we aren't? I mean, that's the only thing that kind of just.
And the hardest part about that, I will say I totally get what you're saying, and of course my staff have echoed that same sentiment. And the thing is, we don't know what our surplus is going to be. We don't get it all, so just because Janet is projecting in the middle of summer that she thinks our surplus is going to be 2.5 million, we don't know that until after we get done at the end of the year, and some of those surplus funds don't actually show up for us until later in the year. So what we have in our bank account right now that we could put toward that is questionable, because we don't actually carry money in an account that has surplus funds. We basically, the county treasurer holds all of our funds, and then we pay our bills and they pay through the county. So while it looks like we have the money available, actually we don't really, to get it, put it in there today. And second of all, what do I want to tell you about that? Besides that we don't have it today, that we also can't put it toward things that will become an expense year after year after year. So we'd have to find something that would be only a one-time expense that we could put it towards. Because we can't count on it. Because if we said, oh, let's add 2 more social workers to this group, then how are we gonna do that year after year after year if we don't have a surplus?
I know that and I understand that. It's still in my head. I can't get out. Because Janet nice enough to say, it looks like we're gonna be around.
Yeah.
So you get to it. I don't know, I wanna say happy because I'm not saying that, but it looks like you're expecting it. And I keep thinking like we need a vehicle or we could use an extra person here. And I got the money right there. And I feel bad that we can't use it to help more. I mean, does that make any sense or am I going?
Well, those have been on the board.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the car business for a long time and we never had any surplus because if we did that, someone had a new parking lot or the building got newer because that's where it went. You can't do it in this. I know it's a little different. So we never really had much surplus because it went into something. And I always think there's gotta be something when I see that. And I know before I ran, they talked about it. Even I said, they're gonna tell you about all the surplus sitting there, but it's because of this. But it just, if I had extra money in my checking account, my wife would find a way to do something with it, right? I mean, or my kids. would
If
do
she
something.
couldn't, I could.
Yeah, somebody would, right? So but I guess you can't be in this stuff, you like to be at zero. Has it ever been zero?
The year I started, budget ending that year was 200,000 in deficit. And the year after I started, we had a $200,000 surplus, and then it's only gotten greater. So we've never had, as far as my 16 years, we haven't ever had a zero or less budget.
So I guess the footnote I would make is that because we have the surplus and we're nice enough to contribute to the county board, that we should open the door to have more consideration for other things. Going on record that we should be considered for other things we might need a little bit easier because we have that, and the big boys were chipping in the pot. We should be able to have something.
It's not really a surplus, we're just not spending as much as we.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So is that?
Yeah. So that's another way to look
It's
at
not
it.
a surplus, we're quite fortunate.
But I want to go back to this.
Yeah. In a budget, we just didn't need all of the money we had in the budget. It's not like, but at the same token, there is extra money that comes in that we don't expect. That,
Yeah, that's where the surplus comes. It's not that we're making money more than we thought, like we're making money or that we're not spending it right. It's just that we've spent it, we don't know, we're gonna get reimbursed, we don't know when.
Yeah.
Budget time comes, it hadn't come in. And sometime in the middle of the next year, oh, something you spent the year before the current year, there it is. So it's the way the money comes in, but you can't predict.
well, here's what I would say to you that we would consider using something like that for is, like if one of our vans right now broke down hopelessly and we needed a new van because we couldn't repair it, I would be going and saying, can we transfer some money? We'd have to do it via transfer because it's in a different account. But I'd say, let's use some of what we anticipate to be a surplus and let's get a new van. Because, there's no other, because we have to have it this year. So I think something like that, if we could identify something that actually, is a one-time payment and that we need it right now, I would advocate for doing something like that right in the moment. But we just haven't had too many things that we needed to have a big number to purchase in a given year.
So they actually, that build, the immediate needs are being taken care of with the existing budget.
Yeah.
And there might be some left over at the end of the year, but we won't know yet. It's good.
And we will be actually doing that type of a transfer at year end because of our labor. That'll be countywide because of the salary adjustment.
Okay.
And we also have the pay differential and the additional kind of compensation for people that are 24/7 facilities. So you can see we're
gonna have a
projecting
transfer.
about $500,000 over. So we'll see a budget adjustment later on.
I'm just fighting for us.
Yeah, well, I love the way you guys are fighting for us. I appreciate that. I mean, a few years ago, there was a thought on this board to establish a non-lapsing fund so that monies could be held and then could be kind of used because it would be there, but there wasn't enough. John Demo asked that you not consider doing that, and I think the vote was not to do it at the time.
But other departments do have a kind of,
Yeah,
Excess.
and some counties do have non-lapsing funds, but I'll tell you what, I was from a county, Marinette, that had a non-lapsing fund. And we just used it the same way it's happening now, which is like if our budget was short, we tap into our savings account to tap into when we had a short budget. So it kind of didn't really operate the way, even in that regard, because everybody thought, well, we'll just tap into it and want to do some extra stuff. And it never got used for that. It just got used to balance the budget, which is kind of what we do right now with our budget, trying to balance it the way we're doing it. So it kind of ends up the same way.
And I could get in trouble, but yeah, because I know it on the county board, we had some things where we're short in some money, and you kind of find out there's 4 or 5 other pots that we didn't know about, remember? And all of a sudden the project's gonna be paid for the 5 or 6 pots that we had sitting this money here. So that's a whole different thing. I gotta go ahead there, right? You remember, but I mean, that's, so you always hear all this other stuff. And so you just wonder really,
Jan's still got part of her
Yeah, I'm sorry, I shouldn't get off track my side.
There's nothing too outstanding this month. You'll see that our revenue was high. That's because we got an influx of some of the state monies that we had submitted for. And you can see that June expenditures were high, so some of the ones we were following, what we reported on for June. Our year-end surplus again is largely operational savings and additional revenues. You'll see on the last page that our labor is starting to, the orange bar is starting to get a little higher than the blue one, so the projected is overtaking what we had budgeted. So again, you'll see a transfer for that later on in the year. The only thing I was gonna really mention for this month was that all of the things we had agreed to support day by day with, we've paid all of those bills now. Our agreement with them ended as of April 30th, and we've just finished paying all of those bills, so.
I was gonna pass along to you. They said they didn't receive
Yeah.
March, but you took that, okay.
Um,
I just reminded myself that somebody called me about March and I figured that Jen would take care.
It's done.
Okay.
So, and then we also got one additional WIMCR payment that was related to a prior year, so that was $4,661. And I think we're going to get actually another payment for prior year WIMCR, which is gonna be more than 110,000.
And what is WIMCR again?
It's Wisconsin Medicaid cost reporting. It's the, and it drew up with our Medicaid reimbursements.
One question with the day by day. With all the money that we did spend, there was no agreement to pay any of it back or, you know, of any of it, right?
Not to pay it back.
No, so it's all gone. So, okay, so we paid it all and then we're done, right?
So,
But nothing comes back.
So that's all I have. Any questions?
It was a good report, Jen.
thanks, Jeff. Okay, the elevator update.
Yes.
Here's the good news.
I saw some fire out there.
The good news is that they are starting week number 4 of their repair of the elevator. I've talked to the guys who are in the shaft literally every day, and I ask them for an update, and they tell me that the last part that they have to do is to build what they call the car. And they refer to what I would call a box.
The thing we stand in?
The part that we all get into and hit the buttons is called the car. And so they are in the final stage and they have to build the car from scratch because it doesn't conform to the current width and height and depth of the standard cars that they create now for elevators. So they have to create the car from scratch. And so they were telling me that they literally have to, like every part of, like where the top is, where the fan is and the lights, they had to create a different diameter hole than they typically have to for putting in those parts. And so they said that the reason it's taking, well, they were gonna go for 4 weeks. So this is the beginning of week 4. Okay, so they estimate that they are gonna be done somewhere between week 6 and week 8. So
Halfway there.
So they're more than halfway there. We can hear them banging and drilling and rattling things. So I know they're in there. And they've basically been working at it really hard. So I think my estimate would be, where were we at? Beginning of September. We'll definitely have a working elevator by the end of September.
Okay.
And maybe.
You said that was the good news. Is there bad news? And does the bad news have to do with?
Well, the bad news is only that they're not done yet.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say there goes the 2 million.
It's Mike Elder's budget, and Mike had to request some additional funding because it did go over what he thought. I don't even remember right now the cost. It's probably $500,000 plus or minus. So if you guys remember what the additional was, I think it's somewhere between a half
Had to do
and.
with the software, I think, the computerized parts.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with the car.
It wasn't 35
The
bucks.
car.
The car.
There's your car.
So anyway, they're building the car and we should have a working operating elevator that we hopefully shouldn't have to worry about for the next 30 to 50 years.
Are you scheduling a ribbon cutting?
Yeah.
Really?
I don't know, maybe so, I don't know,
Sure.
that would be great. I'm just gonna be happy when that thing,
Yeah.
press the button and it works. And I can tell you, our 1927 vintage elevator in the older part of the building still works
We'll see it.
to this day. It's still working, it's still operational. And I'm just pleased and happy that we actually have one operational elevator, because if we didn't have that operator operating, we would not be in compliance with ADA. I don't know that we could serve anybody with a disability that had any problems navigating stairs. So we would be in a world of hurt if we couldn't have at least that one operational. So I'm just happy that it's lasted this whole time, that that our elevator there is. And really, as Mike Elder said, we should never have a county building that only has one elevator.
Yeah.
We also have just one elevator here. So if we ever build any, if you guys will approve any future county buildings, one thing I'll tell you is make sure it has 2 elevators in its building, because without 2 elevators, you're sunk if one of them is gone. It's
Yeah, when a church puts in an elevator, it has to hold a casket. When you have an elevator, can it hold a gurney at least, if you had to get somebody from one floor and then EMTs were pushing them in with can it fit a gurney?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know, because I don't know the standards that it was built under, because the inside structure, I mean, they are literally, they showed me the inside of the.
Did you get in?
Well, they had the doors open one day and they were on a platform, and they were working on this platform constructing. I said, well, how big is the inside? It's like, they're literally, there's no more room than the actual car and the track, that it goes up a track and down a track. And there's literally like, there's no other space. I mean, they are making the box as big.
Yeah.
I call it the box. They're making the car as big as the space allows. Is it big enough for a gurney? I don't know.
It's happened. So unless it's gonna be smaller, yes.
You have had a gurney in there before?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't need to have a casket like a church does, but at least somebody
So
can
anyway,
wheel
so
somebody out.
it's on schedule.
Good.
Just.
Let me ask. This one, I was thinking in my mind that this is a two-holder. There's not two cars.
There are not 2 cars.
Just one.
Just.
And why did they have to wreck the old car?
Why did they have to wreck the old car?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
But I think there were so many problems with the old one
They
that
just
they
had to
couldn't
dig it
figure out, that they didn't really know like how much was structurally wrong with it, that I think they basically had to say, okay, we gotta start over. They took out the old track. They took out, they took out the old track, they took out the old motors, they took out everything. So it was just literally
A gutted
the
shaft.
the shaft. It was just literally the empty shaft, and they rebuilt everything.
Well, we were under the impression it was just a workings that were getting replaced with the whole
No,
thing.
the whole thing, the whole new track.
Did they say how long they guarantee it for?
The old
We're gonna
one,
be paying for it if it breaks down.
the old one was probably built in China and shipped here on
I have no idea.
years ago.
No idea.
Back in the 1920s.
Yeah, they got the deal they should have taken.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the good news is, we're gonna have a working elevator. Bad news is, it's probably gonna take another several weeks.
Okay, get on to number 8. You can do that?
Okay, now, number 8, we're not gonna have today because Renee is not here.
Is she okay?
She is vacationing
Oh,
with
she's
her
the one doing
family
it. Okay,
in Mexico.
that's right.
Then my report.
Yep.
Okay, so just, I wanna, as part of my report today, I wanna let you know that there's gonna be a change in director's report going forward. And that change is that if I present to you anything without you asking me, I have to put it in a bullet point, and I have to make sure that people are aware of what I might be presenting to you in terms of my report. I can, without a bullet point, talk to you about like dates and, like upcoming things that might be of interest to you. I can report that. But if it's anything,
Not.
I can.
You can.
Right. But if it's anything that might turn into, if I'm gonna report to you something that might turn into a resolution that you might take up later, or that maybe I'm commenting on something that's already happening in the county, that I can't talk about it unless I bullet point that in my director's report. So today, and so the other point that doesn't change though is you can ask me anything during director's report to report to you on. It doesn't have to be a bullet point. So you can ask me about something that generally you're curious about. For instance, how did the budget discussions go? You could ask me that in the form of a question and I can answer that without having to have a bullet point.
I'm confused.
Is that so people know what you're gonna talk about and be here for the public comment part?
So as it was communicated to me by the Corporation Council, that if I'm going to talk about anything that could turn into a resolution or is presently county business in some regard, then I have to bullet point it if I'm gonna initiate it.
So the bullet point then would need to appear on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
This had to do with another department that comments started getting made, and then it kind of launched into something that could have been seen as it was seen as breaking open meetings rules, because it wasn't listed as something that the community was gonna know we were gonna discuss, but questions got a little bit out of hand and it launched into other things, and
You guys can say whatever you wanna say. I'm the one that's limited.
Just for the record.
So I just,
No, maybe just, yes.
Just for the
I
record.
don't think I would discuss this right
No, I'm not.
now.
so
what it was about.
you
We can bring
have, I just wanna make sure I'm
So it's not
understanding.
sure.
What you're going to talk about in your report will be a bullet point on this agenda
Right,
going forward.
right.
And if a board member has a question about something or would like a topic discussed, does that need to go through the
If you
chairman
wanna
to
ask me
you?
any question about anything, that's county business or not county, you know, I mean, it could turn into a resolution, maybe not turn into, if you wanna ask me a question, you don't change anything about what you do. You continue to do what you do, okay? It's only me who has to like think ahead, like, what do I wanna tell you about today? And then once I get that in my head, what I'm gonna talk about today, then I need to put that in bullet points, you know, in my director's report. Especially if it has to do, and this is where Corp Council said, if it has to do with something that's gonna turn into a potential resolution for the future, like you're gonna take some action about what it is that I might bring up. Or if it's me commenting on anything that you as a board have brought up. And I'm not asked about it, but I'm just gonna launch into my telling you what I think about it. That's when I have to put it in a bullet. So me answering a question for you today is not going to get me in trouble. It's gonna be if I launch into something and I haven't bullet pointed it, then I'm potentially in violation of open meetings laws. So I'm just letting you know that you're gonna see a change in the meeting structure because I'm gonna have bullet points under my director's report. And so other than if I'm just reminding you about it, like, hey, we're gonna talk about a change in date or a change in location, or hey, something's happening at the farmer's market, you know, this week and I want to tell you about it, or something like that. I don't have to bullet point every single thing that I tell you, but I just have to pay attention to my comments about things that I just initiate in my director's report to you. So I don't think it's gonna change anything about what you want to ask me.
Well, we don't have anything in front of us in terms of any, we don't have your director's report or any kind of bullet points in front of us.
No.
We didn't get
Bullet points
mailed
are
that.
just the things that I might say verbally to you about.
In fact, you're not even on the list, you're not even on the agenda.
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah,
Go
I'm
back.
back.
Oh.
I'm back now.
Oh, there it is, okay.
I'm in my direction. And I'm speaking about the change today only because it's not that I think it was gonna turn into a resolution. So therefore, I'm speaking about a change in how the director's report's gonna look.
So when we get our agenda for the
Next month.
October meeting,
Yep.
I had to think about what next month
And what
is.
is next month?
If the director has a report, we'll see some bullet points under there.
Yeah, so for instance, today, if I would have known all of this stuff before we published this agenda, which I didn't know, but today I might have given you an update on how things went with the county exec during the budget process. Because I'm thinking that some people might be interested to know how that went.
How did it go, by the way?
That's right. Now you can ask me a question and now I can answer the question. But you see, before you asked me the question, I couldn't launch into that.
I would like to know too.
That's what would have been a bullet point on the director's report, would have been an update on how the budget discussions went with the county exec. But I didn't know all of that stuff prior to us putting this all together, so this is now how it's gonna work. So
Now we're legal.
so to answer your question, Harold was able to make it that day. Larry was
Yeah,
not
I'm
able to
just
make
not
it
sure how I
because he
feel
was
about it.
having trouble already with his knee, I think, and
He's been having trouble with that knee for quite a while.
yeah, and so Harold was there. I think it was a good discussion. We went over what you had all passed for county board, what we did in terms of coming into compliance with his request to not add to the levy. And he was satisfied. He said thank you a number of times. We had very little discussion on, like, he wanted to know what went into the changes, and we went over those changes. But he didn't change anything for us in the budget. Now, he also said that depending on how, when everybody's budget got done, if he needed to come back to us, he would come back to us. So I haven't heard that he needs to come back to us at this point. So I'm assuming that we're good. I did tell him that I'm concerned about next year's budget for 2025 because we have pretty much come to the end of adjusting things. I wouldn't say easily, but adjusting things where we can kind of guess that maybe we'll make it up with the surplus, because I said the surplus is going away from our read, and I don't know that we can adjust things this way indefinitely. And that's what I remember saying to him. And Janet was there and Harold was there, so you could certainly ask them questions about their perspective on how it went. But that's my perspective on how it went.
So you did have it, okay. I don't know if I can say this or not, but I had heard this recently that they weren't having those meetings with the vice or the chairmen, all the groups this year, and they didn't know. Someone asked the board and said they didn't know why. I don't know if that's something, but now I'm glad to see you did do it. But Larry wasn't in on that.
Larry was invited, but he couldn't make it because his knee is bad.
Okay. Cool.
So, and Harold was there though. Harold was there.
They had someone there. They had some close. But
I thought the executive was very pleased with the budget.
He was what?
He was very pleased with the
Okay.
good. That's your report.
So that's my report, unless anybody's got any more questions.
I have a bunch, but I better not.
You can ask
You
them.
can, no,
You
you
can ask them
questions.
anything.
I can't, like, I can answer you, I just can't do my own thing.
How do I do this thing?
Just ask the question.
And Bill, can I
Okay.
just, correct me if I'm wrong, but
We'll shut you down if you can.
you only have to give 24-hour notice of a change in an agenda, so if something hits you on Monday morning, you could change the Tuesday agenda if you needed to,
Yes.
by adding a bullet
Yes,
point.
but they're trying to get us to not do that.
Right, but if something like day-by-day situation came up, that, and you wanted to talk about it, you only have to
If
give
we
24
needed to make a change, we could do
Yeah.
that rule, but
within. Right.
typically we
No, right.
discourage.
But my question is kind of like, we just had a board meeting yesterday, special one. There was topics that came up that affects this group. And I think a lot of times, a lot of us asked, how do they feel? Or what are their thoughts about it? So if you don't ask for it now, I'd have to wait another month before I can ask it to see what's going on, what your opinions on that. by then, certain things will be voted on and it'll be passed. So I'm trying to find a way, when you have a meeting, that you can discuss stuff, especially, it's county board did it, but some of the citizens weren't involved, so they have no idea what happened. So to me, this stuff is more like you're informing everyone, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? or not? And the next category would be board member reports. Is that the time where we would tell everyone what happened or different events, or do we have to wait 30 days before it goes back? on the air?
Chairman, the
Does it make sense?
committee chair could give a.
Yes, go ahead.
Would you like me to ask the question, Rob? And then.
Do you know what I mean?
Sure, I know exactly what you mean.
I think I do too.
I never really
So-
want to
It was
do
in today's Oshkosh Herald.
Was it in the paper today?
Yeah, it was the
Okay,
Oshkosh Herald
so
today.
yes, the county board is contemplating a new committee structure, which would greatly impact this board, the Human Services Board, by creating Health and Human Services and by creating the Health and Human Services Board and adding Parkview under the purview,
And Board of Health and
Yes.
veterans.
under the purview of that new.
So are we allowed to ask you
Board.
your opinion about that?
So,
Sure.
so I think all of us here are curious about your thoughts as the director and what you see as the pros and cons of that situation.
Can I just ask, is this being considered for all of the committees that they would reconfigure all
Yes.
county board? It's not just that.
Not just this, it's,
They want to
Oh,
reduce it
and
down
some
to
would
three
remain,
boards and 10 committees. down
Okay.
to-
Yes, some
Kind of
would,
what the city has done?
some
City of
would,
Oshkosh is just.
Yes, they did.
some would
Like last year,
remain
It'd
the
be
same.
We'd be
and
health
some-
and human services.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just the
Board.
background of what.
And there'd be a
That's why I
merger
said-
of committees and boards.
When you have these meetings, it's kind of nice to inform citizens and the board,
Yeah.
So,
which is board reports is what my mind thinks like, but sometimes when they're close like this, we don't talk about it for 30 more days, and by then.
so my
So,
question is,
yeah.
what do you, as Director of Human Services, what do you see as the pros and cons to such an arrangement? And I asked that as a question, I did not form it as a
Right,
statement.
you asked me this question. Well, thank you for asking the question. I do have an opinion. The opinion is that this isn't a new concept. That it's new here, but it's not new elsewhere. Combining committees doesn't also mean combining departments. So what I'm understanding is there's a desire to combine committees and multiple departments will report to one committee, okay? So it doesn't imply anything other than multiple departments needing to be at one committee meeting, which already happens with judiciary, for instance, in this county. There's multiple departments that report to judiciary, the way it's configured. Now, what does it, the pro side is, I believe that multiple departments reporting to one committee helps us to think about doing things in a combined way, more so than what we do right now. Because right now, every department reports to its own committee. I can't tell you what other departments are reporting to those committees because I don't go to them. I don't hear what they're reporting. I don't hear what they're working on. I think there would be an advantage if our 3 or 4 departments are all in the same room, hearing what each other is working on. I think that might be an advantage to maybe working together on things where we didn't think about that before. Or knowing what each other is facing is an advantage because then maybe we can assist each other better knowing what's happening. I think there's some efficiencies in maybe having one meeting because, we can combine some things together that doesn't equal 4 times the length of a meeting, that maybe we can kind of shrink some of our stuff down into a shorter time frame, along with, public health, maybe shrinking their stuff down a little bit, and Parkview, so that the meetings maybe don't go 7 hours, maybe they only go 2 to 3 hours. So those are the advantages, I think, of combining committees. And could I work with that? Yes, because I've been in a county where we combined board departments into, one committee before, so it's not a new concept to me. The downside, is that you have to go from 4 different committees down to 1 committee. That means that there's gonna be a lot less committee people, so people are gonna lose their seats on committees. So potentially we could lose some of you in a combined committee format, and I think that's a loss. So the downside to me is that, because you have to create 1 committee structure, that means that you're only gonna have, how many people on that committee? 15, 11, 9, 6? Okay, so you're potentially gonna have less people on the committee. And I think sometimes when you get into a difference of opinion, sometimes it's better to have more people's thoughts on something than less people's thoughts on something. So, I think maybe that's a potential downside, is that, maybe you lose something in combining those numbers of committee people down. You get lesser maybe lesser perspectives on a topic before you vote on it.
I was hoping that was my follow-up question having to do with the new proposed structure
Okay.
of the committee, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 supervisors, and we have 4 community members.
Right.
And the new structure is 6 supervisors with 3 citizen members, 1 having to be a nurse, 1 having to be a doctor, and then another.
One has to be a consumer of benefits from human
A
services.
consumer or a family member of
Yeah.
someone.
And the committee would have to select a county board supervisor to be their chairman. That's also the new rule. So, so if you could just, tell us your perspective on, share, what is your experience with the current makeup and your thoughts on the proposed makeup of a new combined?
Well, with 9 committee members, we have 9. It's a different configuration. You have one more county board member, 1 less citizen member, and the citizen members are more restrictive as to who can be a citizen member. So I think the downside of that is, again, that you're kind of restricting more who can be a citizen member and losing 1 citizen member to it. I think it's a loss. Honestly, I think it's a little bit of a loss. And it's gonna, because there's gonna be more county board members on it, the tendency might be to be a little more, I don't know, what's the word I want to say?
Integrity.
That it might be a little more focused on a stronger, what does the county board members want, as opposed to what do the citizens want, where I think we're closer to a balance with 5-4. If there's a difference, I don't know, like it's not usually county board members against citizen members, but I just think that sometimes we have a lot of county board members, it becomes like a mini county board meeting almost, as opposed to a balance of what is the citizen members with county board members. And I think you'd lose a little bit there with that composition, but at the same time, you got to limit it to a number that's going to be manageable for purposes of having a vote and not having, you don't want to have 25 members of this huge committee. Otherwise, what would you be able to, it's the same issue with like having too big of a county board is like, sometimes it becomes unwieldy because there's just too many members.
And can you indulge me with one more question and then I'll be quiet?
All right.
Maybe you can help me because you have experience with health,
Yeah.
Public health things too. Is there a rule or a statute that restricts participation on a board, like a board of health, if you live in a community that has their own public health department? So for example, can I serve?
That one I don't know. I don't, because I haven't read the.
Yeah,
You didn't get an
yeah.
answer yet?
I used to work in public health.
Yeah.
And I'm quite sure because they would have their own health department and their own board, versus the county that serves the residents outside of that community that has their own health department.
Okay,
I don't think the county public health can force something on the city that has their own.
yeah, but for
Department.
example, I live in the city of Menasha, we
Right.
have our own
You have your
public
own.
health department.
Right.
Therefore, if I'm understanding correctly, I cannot serve on the Winnebago County Board of Health.
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know.
That was my
the
understanding, that's what was my
Just
understanding.
trying to get the answer to this question.
There is, there's a
Yeah.
statute, it's chapter 251. If you want to look up the statute for public health, it's under chapter 251.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Was this just introduced for the first time last night?
It was a
It was
presentation.
presented, we knew it was coming, but it was presented for the first time last night,
Is there a timeline for a decision about it?
by the end of March.
No, September business meeting.
Next meeting.
September business
The
meeting.
time, well, yes, the timeline is they had to be completed before the next election, because we wanted it in place before the April election. But yes, we did say it was gonna come to the October meeting?
No,
It's coming to the September meeting,
This-
okay.
It will be
That's why I
on
was saying.
the agenda for the September nineteenth meeting.
Yeah.
For a vote, but to take effect with the new county board in April.
Thank you for bringing that up, so I didn't, thank you. Because that's very important, because I think citizens need to know just as much as the board.
Can anyone else ask questions, Mr. Vice Chairman?
Anyone, as long as you ask him.
All right,
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
Does anybody else
I'm gonna
want
be
to?
quiet and listen now. Thank
Anybody
you for
else?
indulging me.
Yes.
If 3 departments are added to the new committee, does that mean when that committee is in operation, having a meeting, that there'll be 3 different department heads sitting in here?
For the committee meeting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, every department would have to be represented at the committee meeting.
Pretty efficient, have all that expensive money sitting in one meeting.
Yeah, so there is, thank you for bringing up time, because there's another downside. And that is that depending on what's happening in each of our departments, one department would need more time, let's say if there's a lot of stuff going on. And then if you have like a rigid breakout of like how much time you've allotted to each department, that would be definitely a downside to this thing. And so time management of the committee, and as Harold brings up, we would have to have, like, would I ask all of my staff to attend the entire meeting? And the answer would probably be no. Like, we'd have to figure out, like, are we gonna go first on the agenda, are we gonna go last? And then try to figure out what's the best utilization of staff time, because to get to Harold's point, I don't wanna have somebody sitting for 3 hours or 3/4 of the meeting not being about what we do. So that would be an inefficiency to this downside.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, where I differ on that a little bit. We have 36 county board supervisors. And I just think that every one of those 36 members who are elected by the public, they should all be entitled to be on a committee. I don't think that of 36 supervisors, 20 of them can be on a committee and any others can't. That's my opinion on that. And I'm awful interested to know what brought this change. What was wrong with the previous system?
I don't think that was ever brought up.
I tried to ask that
Is that
question.
too much
Yeah.
common sense to ask that question?
I don't think we ever heard a justification for doing this. Like, okay, here's what's going on. This is why we need to readjust how many committees we have. It just like, let's just do it. I don't think it was.
That's not a question.
I'm just saying it.
Yep, I don't think we can do
I was
that.
involved in this before, and I know what. to get
Yeah,
done.
right.
I understand exactly.
I think we got good answers from
But
our.
yes, we got good answers.
No, right now you have 8 employees, including yourself, and you would have 9 if Renee were not on vacation. So if,
Sitting here.
yeah,
Yeah.
taking up a lot, several hours of their salaried time, hourly time, however they're paid. So if we were combined, how would that impact that sort of structure? And you said something about not having everybody here, but.
Well, that's what I tried to answer before is like, I don't know how I would time manage in the new system. So I'm just trying to answer the questions as best as I can and being neutral about it. Because my ultimate answer is whatever you decide as a board, we will make it work. So, I can see keeping it the same. I can see changing it. And I think we would just have to figure out if it changes, how we would adjust our time and structure so that we make it the time that you need as a board available to you. And at the same time, not waste, county employee time if we're not needed. So, I mean, that's just the fair and balanced answer is like, you guys decide and we can make it work. And I trust the process and we'll make it work, whatever you decide.
Appreciate that. Now I got some questions.
Okay.
The simple ones really, did your group get surveys asking about this in the past?
I got a survey.
You got one?
Yeah.
But did any employees get any surveys asking about the thoughts on
I think they only sent it. If I remember right.
That's correct.
Is that what it was? It just department heads and surveys? Okay, great. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for your candor. I appreciate. Now, the next category would be one. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, one more question.
You promised.
Can I,
you said you were
I
gonna
know,
move.
but you're ready to move
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
and I want to keep it under this
Okay,
item,
that's
director's
all right.
report. Can I request an item to be placed on the director's report for the next agenda?
I'm writing it down.
Yes.
An update on the 2024 budget process for the Human Services Department.
You can always do that, then,
But then he can prepare and he doesn't have to be on the
And make
spot,
sure
and
that
it's
it-
on the agenda.
And make sure you get with Larry, because I don't want Larry.
And committee
He's not here, that he
structure.
doesn't feel proud.
And committee structure.
I guess I have one more question. Bill, if we
You
were
want
to
that too?
have to reduce the number of employees that were sitting in a typical meeting, and we had a question about Annette's kiddos or Heather's adults, transitioning into adulthood or something with the ADRC, but those people weren't here, would you be able to field those questions and
I
know
do.
the answer?
I try my best to answer it. And if I couldn't, I'd just say, I need to get an answer and get a report back to you next month.
Okay.
So my answer would be, we'll get an answer for you and we'll report next month.
We could always be on Zoom too, on standby.
Yeah, the other note again, that we, I think it's wise that we do some discussions on certain things, so everybody is more up to date on stuff, both says that. So I think, if Mr. Chairman, he's not here now, but if you have some ideas or something that you want to be brought up that we can talk about, we should get to Larry, because Larry makes it with you, right?
Right. Larry tells me what he wants on the agenda. It's also okay that if anybody emails me and says you would like an update on something, I know you guys haven't exercised that much with email, but if you want to, and just send me an email saying, hey, Bill, I hope that you can, update us on, X at the next meeting. I can put it on the agenda and I'll, with Larry and as long as he okays it, I can put it under. Because sometimes I just try to anticipate what you want to know. And then I just would like off the cuff, give you my report. And like now I have to be more deliberate about what you want to know, that I can report to you.
Yeah, because we found the last two meetings, people really were holding back because they really wanted to get deeper into stuff we were talking about, right? And they didn't. And then I got going talking about that, and then it opened it up. But so we gotta you gotta have stuff if you can that you're interested. Let's bring it up. Let's talk about it. I think citizens, as much as board members should know, things are happening in the board that citizens don't know about. And I don't like surprises, so I think it's smart if we do that. So if you and Larry can get together, anybody has any ideas, we should send it to them. And then Larry, we're not undermining him, we just whatever he'd like to do, but I think it's wise that we talk and discuss things before. Okay. Next one, discussion again, would be the reports of board members. Now, I'm gonna ask one question here only from you, because you've been here for a long time, Karen, and Larry, you have. What does that mean? What are these reports?
Well, for instance,
Okay.
since we last met, I have managed to collect from some food pantries, food donations for, the shelter, what's that place called that's on, over by Coughlin?
The shelter care,
Oh, no, not that one, not that one, that's not where.
Christine is.
Crisis Center.
No, well, I did do it for Chrissy Ann, but that's not under us. The one that, with the house with the 8 kids,
Winnebago County Shelter.
is that yeah,
No, the Silvercrest?
no,
You're not talking about Nina, you're talking
No,
about, you're talking
I'm
about
right here.
Harrison Street.
yeah, the one on Harrison Street.
Winnebago
So,
County
so
Shelter.
what I would report is that I have been there twice with food that I've collected from a food pantry that gave me some surplus they had.
Okay.
That's the kind of thing that I would report, and I will, that's what I was able to do that. And I checked all the dates on the expiration dates on everything, so it was all good. And I did a follow-up on, someone came to me about a homeless woman who they saw on the Aldi's parking lot, and they thought she'd been there for several months. Turns out she's been there for 10 years. But I talked to Nina Police, when I talked to Renee, Renee first, and she says, you better check with Nina Police, and I did that, and they're aware of her. She doesn't want services. She's living in the parking lot or under a bridge when it's bad weather. So that's the kind of thing I would report, because that's what I've done in the past month.
Harold, you want to get any input there? What do you think there?
So one thing I'd like to request is that at our last meeting, was supposed to have been a report given to this committee from the sheriff's department by Dr. Mike Sewell. And I'd like to have that put on a future agenda. He just said Detective Mike Sewell from the sheriff's department was unable to attend the meeting. He was sick.
He was out sick. That's the last meeting, he was out sick.
I'd like to have him on a future agenda.
Oh, okay.
Art, do you have anything?
No,
No,
I've talked
no
to
reports, okay. I've talked about, okay.
Thank you.
That's nothing. Chris, anything?
We have a Powerful Tools for Caregivers class scheduled to begin September 18th. It's an evening session from 4 to 5:30, and I believe it's at the Oshkosh Public Library, but don't quote me on that, because there's a lot of dates floating around, but that's coming up.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
I guess I could add that there is a Habitat for Humanity Rock the Block event happening on Doty Island. It starts on September. Hang on one second. I believe it starts September 21st.
Like a music thing?
No, this is the effort by Habitat to work with homeowners and fix up houses and properties in the neighborhood, qualifying households. And so they're looking for volunteers for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. You can go to the Habitat for Humanity Fox Cities website to sign up. And then you'll show up on site. They'll send you off to wherever you're going with your team, and you'll work for a few hours, doing landscaping, painting fences, like things like that.
Okay, cool. Thank you, everybody. I think I do.
I do have one announcement that I can actually make under
Okay.
direction. Can we go back?
Yeah, I was just gonna make one comment. then,
Okay, right.
And again, just by board member reports, this is the area that I thought that the board member would be updates and board stuff. So that's what I thought it was, see, and every time I see a meeting, what?
Related to the committee.
Right, but that's right, but okay, so I always wondered if that's the way I felt, it was like you report, because citizens are here, and they're not there at all, so they don't know what's going on.
It says public.
But it does, okay. Okay, so thanks for the clarity.
Sure.
All right. See, I'm learning.
I'd be careful.
Well, like if Chris had gone to a conference someplace that dealt with things that we deal with, even though she's on the the county board,
Right.
as a member of this board, she would have something to report to us.
Sure, okay, good, okay, thank you, that's why, the only way to learn,
Okay.
is ask questions.
And I forgot under director's report, it's just an announcement. We closed on Silvercrest. So we are, so that is something I can report without having to put it in.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
We closed, it's August I have an 11th in my head, but it was one of those, it was a Friday.
August is good.
It was August, and we now are the proud owners of Silvercrest. Yes. Group home in Neenah.
Are we cooking steaks by the lake? Or is it different Silvercrest?
I don't know what you're talking about, but no, we're not having steaks.
I think there's a restaurant called Silver.
There probably is. But anyways, I can report to you that we did close.
And was it turnkey? I mean, we closed and people could move in. We've got people moved in.
We're in the exact same building and nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed, except
Everything
we
was
own
the
it.
same.
Except we own it and the facilities is managing it. They did change some alarm systems. That's it.
Okay.
I don't have it on there. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Look at your.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We'll
Thank
put
you.
a German on it.
I don't know.
Thank you.
If we do, if it's on the agenda, we have to stay here until next month, I guess.
The next meeting is October 2nd.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, back to the first Monday in October, right?
Correct, yes.
Back to the first Monday in October. And back.
Back in Oshkosh, first Monday in October.
Are you a duck?